Welcome to Eye on Sci-Fi podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 203 of the Eye on Sci-Fi podcast, the podcast where we share with you terrific indie science fiction and fantasy, online short films, web series, and other closely related media. We also, on occasion, have conversations with the talented and interesting creators who are producing outstanding indie speculative work. This episode is a very special one because we have a very special returning guest. Dan Abella is the founder and programmer of the Philip K. Dick Festival. Now, the PKD Film Festival is not your typical science fiction film festival, and that is because the films that are selected are either inspired by or adapted from the works of renowned sci-fi author Philip K. Dick. And so these films tackle some pretty heady topics, including what is the nature of reality, what is the nature of humanity, and it also addresses our ever-evolving and fraught relationship with our technology. Dan joins me again on the podcast to talk about this year's PKD Film Festival, which will be held in New York the weekend of April 4th through April 7th. So if you're in New York during those days, I highly recommend that you attend the film festival because they're going to have a fantastic slew of programming, and Dan discusses what that programming will be in this episode. Now, I do have to make one disclaimer. Unfortunately, folks, I had technical issues, and on my audio, there is a noticeable echo and reverb. I've tried to do everything in post to mitigate that, but it's still very noticeable, and I do apologize. Fortunately, Dan's portion of the audio is crystal clear. So, again, my apologies, but this is still a fantastic and very informative conversation with one of our favorite guests. So, without further ado, please enjoy the Eye on Sci-Fi podcast conversation with Dan Abella, the founder of the Philip K. Dick Film Festival. Dan Abella, welcome back, sir, to Eye on Sci-Fi podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. You're always welcome to come on the show. And we have you on to talk about this year's Philip K. Dick Science Fiction Film Festival. And for the audience who is not familiar with it, please share what the mission is and then also what they can expect if they attend the 2024 festival.
The festival was first came up with it back in 2011, 13 years ago. The idea is to showcase films from independent sci-fi directors that reflect the underlying themes that run through the works of Philip K. Dick. That includes themes such as, what is the nature of reality? Are we living in a simulation? Who are we? What does it mean to be human? And so forth. We started it back in 2012, officially, December 2012. And we've been running it since then. I felt there was a need to showcase those kind of films. The focus primarily not on being what I refer to as near future sci-fi. Not something, say, the foundation taking place 10,000 years in the future, but something that might take place at maybe 50 years or 10 years from now. So our focus has always been on that and really showcasing these kind of films so people can really appreciate the message, the underlying message of Philip K. Dick.
And I know that most of the films are either inspired by Philip K. Dick's work or they're adapted from it. So that means that the films that you and your programmers are looking at are probably more cerebral in nature than just maybe poppy. And as you said before, foundation is set so far in the future that it's almost
Right.
fantastical. The films that you're looking for are more grounded, would you say?
These films represent a reenactment of what if this technology is taken to the next level. What if, for instance, AI becomes a all-pervasive system? What if we have to deal with the ethical rights of replicants? What if this dating app has the repercussions? A lot of the shorts that we have are very entertaining, but they also really invite us to really begin to think about this is the world we're going to be living in 10, 20 years from now. So it's giving us an opportunity to really say, well, how are we going to react? How are we going to, rather than taking us by surprise, I would say this festival is a sort of a foreshadowing of what's to come, and be ready, get ready for it.
I would agree. And you mentioned AI, and the last time that we spoke, we touched on how algorithms are a form of AI. But now, recently, these new AI tools have been developed since we last spoke, like ChatGPT and Bard and Copilot, I think is Microsoft's AI.
Right.
And it's really furthering that issue to the forefront. And I think that's really part of the appeal of PKD's work is that it's almost prescient and predicting how we might grapple with technologies like that. So the films that you have seen for this year's festival, have any of them tackled that or tried to even integrate that into the filmmaking process using those AI tools?
Oh, yes, many of them. In fact, we have several films that are generated by AI, or that are with just a minor tab or two were essentially built on an AI platform, and they have the AI positing a world that's totally apocalyptic and all sorts of scenarios. So we have those kind of films that are where the director has used AI as a tool to really expand upon his vision. So in that we definitely have seen. We have several films that are on that nature, and then we also have other shorts where that are live action, where the focus of that is so much on an AI that's being used, and specifically in that context for predictive purposes. And then we have a short where we have two chat GPTs connecting with each other, interacting.
Okay,
So yeah, they're trying to explore what are the limits of AI and how it's beginning to already affect our humanity.
that's wild to me. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I want to get a little bit more granular about the festival. And first of all, congratulations because 12, 13 years and it is still thriving. And I am so happy about that. I think that it really does serve as a very valuable platform for independent filmmakers who are working in the speculative space. First, I want to commend you and your team. And I'm so happy that you've been able to keep the festival going even despite the pandemic and all the challenges that we've all had to deal with in the past couple of years.
Thank you. Every year I often ask myself, well, what is the how we become obsolete? That is because there's so much sci-fi out there, and some of it really is kind of touching on these topics.
Mhm.
But we try to look beyond just sci-fi as a way of really what is our point of relevance right now, and what it is this: that more than 20% of the shorts and features that we've seen deal with grief, PTSD,
Yeah.
sadness, or recovering our humanity. They're very much focused in that. And that's something I haven't seen in other years. I would say sci-fi, the kind of sci-fi we're getting is very much like maybe the kind of sci-fi that we used to get in the 50s, which was a kind of a cover for the Red Menace. Here is really a kind of a cover for a sense of loss that many people are experiencing, especially since the pandemic. So for us, it has really reignited our mission because the sci-fi is great and entertaining, but what sets you apart from everybody else?
Right.
From a festival point of view, I could honestly say that our films really on focus on the human element of that's slowly disappearing. And one thing that I find very um, important to explore is the dynamic that exists between the transactional element that exists within AI and the relational element that exists in in humanity. So transactional is about numbers and lists and groupings and classifications. Very much left brain, whereas relational is more human based, more interactive, more right brain, more holistic. So if you go back in the day, if you were let's say you get to know your banker, and over time, even though your credit might not be that good, he would kind of weigh in as a person. What kind of person are you? And then that would be entered into the formula. Today, unfortunately, that's pretty much been done away with. So we have purely transactional systems that evaluate you based upon credit or other numerical quantifications of your humanity. And unfortunately, I see that AI is only accelerating that. For instance, we have a capacity, and that's very much on the human end, is to anthropomorphize a relationship. For instance, our phone right here, of my phone over here. Some people treat it like it's a living being. In many, I've seen cases of people are so desperate that they literally die. It's a grieving process where you lose your phone for some people. That's a property of our relational dynamic. But we shouldn't confuse that with a flesh and blood human being. So let's say you have an AI system that's been set to create, quote unquote, a virtual friend or a virtual girlfriend. Now, we will fall prey to thinking that's a real girlfriend, but that's only our own anthropomorphic attributes being reflected back to us. So we must be aware of our projective ability and differentiate that between a real life human being or a real life interaction versus what a machine can provide. And that's there's a very subtle, but humans have a capacity to fall in love with anything. With stamps, you ever spoken to a stamp collector, they really get into it. For them, it's like a life and death issue. So we really need to be aware that there is a transactional and a relational, and within the relational, a capacity to be empathic with things that are not even human. And that's what PKD talks about in Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? The ability androids may get to a point where they feel more or seem to be more human than human. Not because they're sentient in the human sense, but in our ability to export this quality to non-living or non-carbon based systems. So that's something to really think about, because it's no doubt that we're going to have more transactional relationships built with AI over the next couple of years. I have a guest here. He's not here. And every morning he talks to Alexa. And he's got these conversations with Alexa. This is going on right now. So we really need to be aware of that. That is a Damoclean sword, a positive, and also because there's no doubt that AI is helping us build, for instance, at the biological level, at the molecular level, build up perhaps or accelerate research in certain kinds of substances that might help us. But when it comes to the human element, we really need to be careful. We really shouldn't divorce the relational. Let's say bank loans. I don't believe bank loans should be based upon numbers, because you're dealing with other people. Therapists, for instance. I've came across a site already that uses AI to provide therapeutic counseling to others. So here you go. It's a very delicate situation. And I'm hoping that the festival kind of highlights the importance of being very aware of what we're doing right now.
I think that's very profound what you just talked about. And let me just add too, we have to look at and examine the ethics as well, and also question who is designing these systems, because bias is a real thing. There's already been so many incidents about facial recognition and how for Black people and people of color, those systems really do malfunction. And that can really impact negatively people who are already marginalized. But on the flip side of the coin, many of these technologies can help people who are disabled be able to connect and be more independent So we really have to walk that fine line. And I do agree with you in the work that I do. I'm seeing more filmmakers tackle that subject. There's one film where this young girl's mother is missing, and she enlists this app that scours the internet for all of her mom's social media posts and recreates a digital virtual image of her mother that she can converse with. It's wild. And we are at that point right now.
Microsoft already is working on avatars, or Meta. No, is it Microsoft or Meta? No, it's Meta. I'm sorry. Of deceased relatives.
That's creepy.
Very, very creepy.
No.
And the sad thing is, for too long, we've had people who are very quick to dismiss humanities, dismiss a good friend of mine, like Neil Tyson, deGrasse Tyson. We went to school together. You know him. He said that philosophy is a waste of time. And I would like to invite him into a conversation. It's not a waste of time when you have to consider what does it mean to be human. Because if you reduce everything to zeros and ones, everybody will be impacted. And we'll be forced to essentially walk along a very specific path, which will remove us from our relational selves. It's very important, more than ever. I would really say that anyone who is into coding, into AI, who is into that, should, by very nature, should have a thorough understanding of philosophy, classical and Eastern philosophy, and not just be a genius at coding. But that's what I'm seeing. Very smart, but they're savants in that area when it comes to the subtle differences of what they consider it worthless or meaningless, because it's not quantitative. We got to balance the quantitative versus qualitative. So when someone falls in love, for instance, that's a qualitative dimension, right? Not so much a quantitative, although some people might define love by certain attributes the other person has, or a friendship. These things are qualitative, and that's the nature of our consciousness. But then there's certain things that are quantitative we need to know, like, when is our rent due? How much money are we making? So we got to balance the two. You can't just go one side.
Absolutely.
And completely. And unfortunately, I've seen that the scales are way to the left or towards the quantitative dimension of human existence, and the qualitative is being, ignored. But eventually, it's going to get to the point we're going to fall off the cliff, and they won't be coming back. So that's really part of our goal, our transcendental goal, our goal as a festival, which is on the surface, yes, we're just about entertainment, building a tribal community, but also to really ask people to examine after watching the film, they can say, well, this is interesting, and I know it's going to happen in a few years. What is my reaction? What is your position regarding sentient? For instance, you are probably familiar, there's already Hanson Robotics came up with, a few years back, a woman, an android called Sophia. And she was already recognized. She's a citizen in Saudi Arabia. Now, this is the very same Saudi Arabia that treats women as like fourth-class citizens. And you gotta think about what's going on.
There.
It's bizarre. It's really bizarre.
Yeah.
So we're still at a point where some of that can be reversed, but we're very close to the edge now. Once you're off, then we're talking about a catastrophic drop.
Right.
Once AI really starts ruling every aspect of our lives, and we got algorithms defining how we shop based upon our prior shopping history, it's going to make Brave New World look like a walk in the park.
This is why art is so important.
Right.
So that it can raise our consciousness and kind of ring the alarm bells when necessary.
Exactly. And artists are usually always at the forefront of what's coming. If you want to see where we're heading, talk to the artists. The ones who are really on the cutting edge, the poets, the writers, the artists, they will tell you what's popping, what's going to happen. They're the ones you really need to. That's why in the old traditions, the kings always had an artist or someone next to him, very close, tell him where's the kingdom heading, a kind of a seer into the future. It's more important than ever to be familiar with art represents and how it can ennoble us and really uplift our spirits.
Absolutely. What are the dates of the festival this year?
Okay, so the dates are April 4th through the 7th.
Okay.
So April 4th and April 5th, we're going to be running pretty much simultaneous with one location in at the Museum of the Moving Image, and one
Yes, I was
at
going to ask you about that.
at the Producers Club.
Okay.
Opening night, we have Matt Modine.
Yes, I was going to ask you about your celebrity guest. Please elaborate on Mr. Modine's presence
Yes,
and his
so
involvement.
he reached out to us. He sent us a film called "I Am What You Imagine," which is kind of a surreal, atmospheric kind of a take on what it means to be human, right? And we really, and it has a collaborator. I forget his name is Vitali. I think his last name is Vitali. He worked with Stanley Kubrick. It has
Wow.
Vitali kind of narrating part of the short. And Vitali actually passed away recently, but he collaborated with Stanley Kubrick's 2001. So
Wow.
Matt Modine directed the film, and he's going to be attending. He's going to be there for a follow-up. I'm very excited. Matt Modine, from many films, most notably Full Metal Jacket. So he's there on Thursday, opening
And
night.
he'll be doing a Q&A, Dan?
Yeah, he'll be doing a Q&A. We got other filmmakers too, but he'll be doing a Q&A. He'll be the last one that we're showing that day at the Museum of the Moving Image. So I'm really psyched about that. On Saturday, we have Arnold Chung, who is he's not a lead. Well, he definitely played a major role in The Man in the High Castle.
Yes, I knew that name sounded familiar.
Yeah, so he's going to be there. So I'm really psyched about that. And also, we have a couple of virtual reality exhibits. One of them is we'll have the producer of the Blair Witch Project.
Okay.
And they're celebrating the 25th year of Blair Witch.
Why did you say that? I already feel old.
That's depressing. I know. That's so.
Oh, no. Okay.
But he'll be
But
there.
it sounds
I
like
mean,
that's going to be a wonderful slew of guests that you have
oh
for
yes,
the attendees.
really, this is a great year. Not every year we are so fortunate to actually have them attend, but we always have something special. Last year, for instance, we had Tom Sizemore acting in this film Imperatus, a feature, a really great performance. Unfortunately, Tom passed away a couple of months afterwards. It might have been his last feature. That was a world premiere, which we showed at the festival.
Yeah.
And so every year we're lucky enough to have something or someone show up and really take the festival to a whole new level. And at the end of the day, it's not just about guests, but also about the filmmakers themselves.
Absolutely.
Many of them are flying from, I anticipate between 40 and 50 filmmakers.
Wow.
They're flying in. I think maybe a record number from all over the world.
That's
from UK, from Australia, from the West Coast, some from New York. And we have filmmakers and screenwriters too.
wow.
As well, because we feel that screenwriting, I mean, I mentioned this before, that screenwriting is very important. It's the heart and soul of any good film.
It's the foundation.
The foundation. If you really don't have good writing, all the glitzy, that gets boring very fast.
Very quickly.
And I still see a lot of filmmakers making the same mistake, focusing on very fancy, but Tarantino-ish choreography, which is impressive, but the story is nothing great.
It all comes down to story, Dan. It really
The story,
does.
and there is so much.
And characterization.
And there is so much to talk about these days, beyond just AI. I mean, I would invite people to consider that we all thinking that AI is going to be this kind of, the ones who are concerned about the singularity might be always a world where these Terminator style robots are chasing us, shooting us down, but it doesn't have to be that way. Even if AI never becomes sentient, the algorithms that are becoming more dominant and telling us what YouTube video to show, what thing to say, what not to say, shut it down. That's happening everywhere.
Absolutely.
And they'll take you down for something harmless. Loans. And I mean, all our relationships are being impacted by AI.
Dan, even think about having children. There was a short film I came across not too long ago, and it was this couple, and they were happy about their prospects of using technology to
Right.
become pregnant. And they were meeting with the consultant and literally designing the baby. It was wild. Okay, you want your baby to have this IQ. And it was an African American couple. So, okay, they need to be a couple of shades lighter than you are to have the best possible chances of succeeding
Right.
in society. Very profound film.
Yes, yeah, actually it kind of reminds me of another short that we have in dealing exactly with that. But that more about what happens after they're selected and why the kid is in this film, directed by Riley Long and Tatiana Blackington is the writer. It's called Homologies. It's about a couple that is seeing a therapist or perhaps a genomic therapist, wondering why her son is super bright, super, physically really, perfect, but he's a bit, what you say, on the spectrum. He's a bit cold and removed. And why is he like that? Why doesn't he love us? And that explores that from that angle. One thing I want to add about this festival, it has a very large representation of various groups that have usually now been represented in the sci-fi category. African Americans, females, Asians, some Hispanics, and so on. So I'm really happy that they're coming because it goes to show you that sci-fi is kind of a universal language. I mean, we've had films. Last year, we had 2 films. Well, one from Zimbabwe.
Yes.
From
Yes.
Zimbabwe. And it was an old, native cast, African cast. We've had films, one feature years ago from Uganda, shot there. It was all, and I'm really excited because, we're getting stuff from both. The whole idea is that make sci-fi seen through the lens of different cultures and different ethnic
Absolutely.
groups and how they represent it and how they use sci-fi to really explore their own challenges. And that's really, there's so much sci-fi, can be explored. I think there are a few directors in Hollywood that are doing it, but not as many as they should. It's still
Not
that plain
enough.
vanilla, very boring sci-fi,
Yeah.
puts me to sleep. But there's
Yeah,
one.
there was
who's-
one show by a major streamer that they spent, and you can probably guess what the show is. They spent billions of dollars to get the rights before they even developed it.
Oh,
They
no.
developed it, and it's pretty, but it's just hollow. I got
Yeah.
bored with it very quickly.
So we've seen that. We've seen fun. And one thing I'm also happy to report is that we've seen directors that was filmed world premiere here, and they went on to break it into Hollywood.
That's awesome.
We
And
had
I do
one that-
appreciate, Dan, how the programming that you and your team put together has always been inclusive and diverse. I just really appreciate that. That's not something that's common, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And your festival is a good representation of that and all the hard work that you put into it. Yeah, I commend you for that. Thank you.
It's really, I'm always very happy when I see films that really represent our wide spectrum of groups and ethnicities and races and so on and countries. For instance, we got to do amazing animation coming from Japan and China.
Oh, wow.
And, people don't realize, I mean, China's way ahead. I mean, doing a lot of good stuff with VR and animation. So is Japan. So we have a whole block just focused. We'll have a couple of industry panels and how to get distribution once you make your film.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's definitely happening. We'll have some panels. I've asked that we're going to have a talk with all the screenwriters about how do they come up with their ideas? How do they put it into words? Because sometimes they don't get the voice that they so much need. I mentioned the virtual reality program, and we have some amazing documentaries. For instance, we have one by Ron James. He's the MUFON media director. MUFON stands for Mutual UFO Network.
Okay.
They're a nonprofit, volunteer-based organization that's been basically cataloging sightings going way back to the 50s, at least 60s. And he is presenting his documentary called Accidental Truth, UFO Revelations, and is essentially a series of interviews with some of the top people in the field.
Fascinating.
We also have a 50-minute, really interesting documentary called It's Not Up to Us. And it's a documentary. It's based upon a visual artist. Her name is Nancy Burson, and she'll be there. She was the first one who come up with the morphing technology.
Wow.
That back in the 90s, before we had all this AI digital stuff, you had to do. And the documentary explores her relationship with the visual field. Yeah, I think that the takeaway I think I like people to have is that it's not just about, zoning out for 2 hours. The one thing that's missing is a lot of people are still trying to get people off their sofas into the theaters. And the one thing that's missing is that collective energy. And we have a lot of people that are going there for the purpose of either a talk or watching a film. There's a special energy which doesn't exist when you're just at home checking on Netflix. Or the second is the quality of the films is independent sci-fi, which always needs the support of people.
Absolutely.
We're marching to the beat of our own drummer. We really feel we uncompromising on what's happening with humanity. And it's very important for us to do that. So we ask people, look, the way to support independent sci-fi is go to the festivals. Go there and really meet other people. So there'll be opportunity for people to meet filmmakers, producers, writers. And it's really a great place. There have been a lot of scientists who have been inspired by sci-fi. A few years back, I think we spoke about Ron Mallett, with his working on a machine or a way of sending particles back in time. African-American, his father died when he was 37 or 38, became obsessed with physics. And at some point he came across his book, The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. And that kind of spurred him on his quest.
Yes.
For sci-fi and the sciences is not just for one group of people or another. Everybody can benefit from it.
Absolutely. And I would be remiss, Dan, I'm sorry to interject. The festival this year is in New York. If you're in New York the weekend of April 4th through the 7th, you need to go and attend the PKD Festival. And Dan, where can they find out more about the festival and find out how to get tickets?
Okay, so fingers crossed, hopefully by the end of the week, I'll have a link for a selected number of films that will be streaming. So if you're not in New York,
there will be a virtual component.
There will be a virtual component till the end of the week. We've been swamped with so much work that we usually have it in the beginning. We just couldn't keep up. It's just so much coming.
But that's a good thing, though.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. And so by Sunday, which there should be a link very prominently displayed on our website. For those who cannot attend, although I would advise anyone who's in New York to absolutely attend because
please do.
The Museum of the Moving Image is a beautiful venue. It's really perfect for sci-fi. And Producers Club is more relaxed, more kickback. In fact, we'll have free popcorn to all people who go there. And we want to have that kind of real communal experience.
Yeah.
So the link is the Philip K. Dick Film Festival.com.
And I will include that link in the show notes, Dan.
We're going to have a link to the streaming, a link to the live, and within the live, anyone who goes to the museum, for instance, can partake in the various panel talks. So it's not like we're shutting down and, the public can. Yeah, come on, join us.
Very good.
So
that's very innovative. And I will, again, put those links in the show notes, Dan, so that my audience can get access to that. And anyone who is listening or seeing this conversation, definitely, if you're in New York, support independent filmmaking. And then also, if you can, participate in the virtual component. And I will get that link from Dan and make sure and put that in the show notes of this episode. And Dan, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to come back on the podcast. You know, you're one of my favorite returning guests. Thank you, sir.
I'm glad we're back, and maybe one day we'll just meet live as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Before I let you go, this year, would there be other PKD festivals in other locations, or would it just be New York for this year?
Every year we have a small festival in Europe in October, late October, and nothing is set yet, but we always do it around the 24th or the 25th of October. So I'm expecting, and every year last year was sold out. We do this in
Wonderful.
France, and but my attitude is, if you have someone in your neighborhood who would like to sponsor us or would like to host our festival, let's say a theater owner, we'd be more than happy to go there. We've done it in LA before. We did it in 2019. I think you covered that.
Yes, I did.
And a stone throws away from where Philip K. Dick last lived, which is awesome. So
Santa Ana, wasn't it?
Santa Ana, right?
Okay.
And yes, any time that if there are any theater owners out there listening and they really would like to host us, get in touch. We'll be more than happy to take our festival to your city.
Oh, fantastic. Now, you heard it here, everyone. So if you know someone who owns an independent theater, or if you own an independent theater at the sound of our voices, get in touch with the festival. And that link will be in the show notes of this episode. And see what can be arranged. And you never know, the PKD Festival may be coming to a city or town near you.
Near you, exactly. That's our motto. If you can, we'll go there and show it. We've done it in Europe, in Cologne, in Amsterdam, in Poland. Yeah, we've done it. But we like to be a little bit closer, stay within the U.S. more often. Not as much traveling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, listen, I wish you all the best, Dan, with this year's festival. Thank you again for coming on. I always have a terrific time chatting with you.
Thank you, and really much appreciate, and looking forward to meeting you one day in person.
I'm going to hold you to that. Take care.
You have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye. And there you have it, the Eye on Sci-Fi podcast conversation with Dan Abella, the founder of the Philip K. Dick Film Festival, which will be held this year in New York City on the weekend of April 4th through the 7th, 2024. So if you're in New York or you're able to be in New York in person to attend the festival, I highly encourage you to do so, because it's going to be an awesome event that is going to support independent filmmakers. And there will be panels and discussions, everything that Dan described, and probably even more. However, if you cannot be in person, there will be a virtual component, and I'm going to include the official film festival link in the show notes of this episode so that you can learn more about it, how to attend in person, or take part in the virtual component of the festival. Also, make sure to visit our link tree that will also be in the show notes, where you can experience all the other short films and web series that we've curated on the site. You will also be able to check out our merch. Yeah, we do have merch now. And sign up for our new newsletter. Now, our newsletter is not your typical newsletter. Our newsletter is what I call a micro newsletter. Monday through Friday, we will send you one speculative gem that we believe that you will enjoy. So it can be a television series, book, or film recommendation, an essay about the genre that we think you'll find interesting, and more. And you will also receive a gift for signing up and becoming a subscriber and supporting the podcast in that way. And this newsletter is also free. So you'll be able to find out all about that and all the other information we have available for you, and also how you can support Eye on Sci-Fi Podcast and the Seventh Matrix on our link tree. And again, that will be in the show notes of this episode. So that's it again for this episode, everyone. Thank you for joining me. And until next time, remember to take a break, escape the mundane, and enter the fantastic. Take care.